And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. Now, preparations are ramping up for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations in a month's time, but the momentous occasion has been marred by a diversity hire controversy. It's been revealed that 22-year-old Singaporean dancer Janice Ho will portray Her Majesty in a pageant in a bold move that's intended to show how the head of the Commonwealth is a global icon. Her selection was a result of so-called Bridgerton casting, according to the arts group that created the act. That term refers to the diverse selection of actors in the raunchy Netflix period drama, which prides itself on colour-conscious casting and includes a black Queen of England. The move follows Channel 5's historically inaccurate decision to cast black actress Jodie Turner-Smith as King Henry VIII's second wife Anne Boleyn last year, garnering a furious response from viewers. Well, Konstantin Kisin, host of the Triggernometry podcast, joins me now. Konstantin, great to have you. Would you say this diversity hire is a nonsensical PC fantasy, or can you understand why they're doing it?
No, I think it's brilliant, and I can't wait until Peter Dinklage gets cast as Nelson Mandela. Look, this is a complete nonsense. And, of course, you know what's going on here, Dan, don't you? The great American philosopher Eric Hoffer said that every great cause begins as a movement, becomes a business, and eventually degenerates into a racket. And, of course, the movement that we're talking about here is this idea of diversity, which started out very legitimately as making sure that people like you and people like me were not being discriminated against, particularly on broadcasting and television and theatre and so on, for the colour of their skin, where they come from, their sexuality and so on. But then, of course, it became a business. And now I'm afraid we're very much in racket territory where this is being used to do these ridiculous things that I don't think benefit anyone, really.
No, I know, because the thing is, Konstantin, it's not fair, is it? Because you would never have a white actor playing Obama. If someone dared do that, they would be cancelled immediately.
Yeah, and look, I think we've got plenty of movies and parts for people to play wherever they come from. But we're talking about the Queen. We know what the Queen looks like. We know where she comes from. I'm sorry that excludes certain people. Also excludes me from playing the Queen. I'm comfortable with that. So I think we've just got to just get back to some common sense here, don't we?
Well, I think we do. I'm not a fan of colourblind casting because, for me, it takes away the accuracy, the historical accuracy of period pieces. And personally, I want things to be as historically accurate as possible, rather than living in a bit of a fantasy world that things from the past were all equal.
Well, quite, and I think it's got to be confusing for younger people and children looking back at these historical things, thinking that, you know, that doesn't actually do justice to the history of this country. And by the way, if you want to talk about accurately covering the discrimination of the past, slavery and so on, it's very difficult to do that if we get this impression that people 400 years ago or whatever were all mixed race and transgender. I don't think that's really going to convey the right picture, is it?
No, it's not. But the fact that it's even gone to the Queen's Jubilee, I think, shows, Konstantin, that this is something we're going to have to put up with a hell of a lot more, whether we like it or not.
Well, I don't think so, Dan. I think what will happen, actually, is most people will see how ridiculous this is, and actually there'll probably be a backlash, which I do think is probably not a good thing. And this is my point, is by pushing this so far, you're actually going to alienate a lot of people who otherwise would be quite happy for more diversity, for people to be included. But when you make it so ridiculous, I think what you will actually see is people reacting very strongly against it. So I don't think we will be putting up with this for much longer, if I'm honest with you. No,
and by the way, this is nothing against the young dancer, Janice Ho, is it? Who I'm sure is absolutely brilliant, but she could have a different role. I think for me, Konstantin, it's just the hypocrisy. It's not colourblind casting because you know it only applies one way, and that's the issue that I have.
Right, and I think, again, this is the point that we're going to get to, where people start going, well, what about white people, or what about straight people, what about men? And then we're all judging each other by the colours of our skins and our sexualities and our sex. I don't think that's what Martin Luther King wanted for us, is it?
No. It was the opposite of what he wanted. It was the opposite of what John Lennon wanted. And hilariously now, Konstantin, if you follow the playbook of Martin Luther King and John Lennon, and that's how I grew up, genuinely believing that we should live in a colourblind world where it didn't matter what anyone's colour was, you're accused of being racist. That's where we've got to.
Quite. And of course, the point I made right at the top about this being a business, we've got to a point where it became a business. We saw, of course, that a couple of years ago with the unconscious bias training, completely scientifically discredited, doesn't work, actually probably makes people angry and a little bit more racist, right? But it was pushed because there are people who now make tens of thousands of pounds from going around selling this garbage to people. And you're going to start to see this in every industry where if you tick the boxes, you're going to get paid. And if you don't, you don't. And as I say, I think it will create a lot of unnecessary resentment, which will actually act counter to the original idea of including people and making sure people aren't being discriminated against. I'm all for making sure people aren't discriminated against. But as you say, it has to be all round.